So divorce is basically a disaster for everyone involved
Oh,
because if
it's
you're the one that initiates a divorce, you're outside the will of God and you're rebelling against God. If you're the one that gets divorced, you're probably getting your heart broken, your heart ripped out, and you're being separated from what God has put together. And
right.
then if you have children in the mix, I have to go on a limb and say it's probably terrible for children. Now, I have a friend who says it worked out a little bit because both of their parents that got divorced started buying him extra stuff and tried to like win his love. But really, what would have been better for any child involved is just to have both parents in the home.
Absolutely. And you make a very good point here. There's some lady, and I forget her name, but she wrote the two-parent privilege. If there's a website called Them Before Us, and it talks about the advantage of having both parents. And that judge who just died, Judge Frank, the guy that everybody used to love to listen to because he was a very compassionate judge, he was talking about how he came from Italy and they were growing up and they didn't have much, but he was so rich because he had both parents and
Mm,
both parents in the home. This is another part of the divorce ideology that has been foisted upon children to say that children are resilient. Children will be happy if their parents are happy. That is an absolute lie. It has
Right.
silenced children. Children of divorce should be speaking up. But the thing is, they've been shamed for someone. It's like we can't really talk about this. Everybody tries to say that, well, you're supposed to be strong. No, the parent should be strong for the children.
Because
right.
the children haven't learned to deal with their own sin nature yet, right? So they're going to
Yeah,
manipulate the
yeah.
single parent, especially the single mom. They say now that there's new studies that come out that say a single mom is the most dangerous environment for a child because she's more easily manipulated because she's more emotional than the single father,
And
right?
and it,
Whereas at the early years, you got to have the mother, right? You got to
yeah,
have the mother, but after you get past that certain point, then you got to have the father. The real thing is we need them both all the time,
we need them both all
and
the
to
time.
Amen.
separate that at all is just a wicked sin, and the
It,
government needs to be called out for their participation in this.
Right.
Yep.
And that's absolutely true. And the other thing is when you mentioned the thing with a single mother, people say, well, maybe it was an abusive father. Statistically speaking, a child is much safer with a father than with the mother's new boyfriend or fiance or
Yep.
new husband.
I
I got
was
a friend
talking
who's
to our friend Amaro who lives in Malawi, and he says every time there's a divorce, the father automatically gets the children for that reason because they find that it's unsafe for a child to go into another home, and then with the wife because she starts marrying or living with men that aren't safe. And you know what? That limits the divorce rate by a lot.
Yeah, so and that you make a very interesting point there because right now our state incentivizes divorce. It incentivizes divorce. Number one, if you file for divorce, you always get it. Then they say, well, at least get 50% of the stuff. So if I leave the company that I work for, I don't get to take stuff with me. I have to return my stuff. And we have these so-called community property laws, which only make sense in a Christian context. I mean, there were some historical reasons for this, but now what they've taken again, they've taken this practice that some Christians helped to set into place, but they've taken Christ out of it. Community property is for the community. If you're leaving the community, why do you take anything? Because the community is the marital community, and that's what the divorce attorneys know that they can fight over these things. And by the way, your children are part of that marital community somehow. They get that a stranger will tell you when you can see your children, when you can't, and if you violate those orders, you may end up in jail. Or if you have to pay to have somebody else watch your children called child support, when you're a fit and willing and able person to do something, they can put you in jail for that. And the state also gets incentivized with federal money under the Title 4D program. So the state is not an unbiased objective, neutral entity in this whole thing. They also know that they can collect money from this stuff. And that's what they've done. So they've oppressed people, they've exploited them. And the attorneys that are involved in this stuff charge sometimes $500 an hour, $250, whatever. I mean, a lot more than what an average person makes by far. And they know how to. I've talked with paralegals. I said, "Oh yeah, the divorce attorneys would get together and they say, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that," and they would negotiate on how to basically exploit the parents' finances. And so what I
You walk in, yeah, and I don't know if this is in Texas, but in New Jersey, you walk in, you have to fill out a case information statement, whether you're the divorcee or you're the one calling for the divorce or the other person is. That case information statement is basically an income statement and a balance sheet.
yeah.
Everything you make now and in the future, and every asset you have, and then they measure you and they say, oh, you got this much fight in you, and they drain it all.
Right. And Joe, let me say the first thing about that too. Is that not a violation of our Fourth Amendment under the US Constitution?
Of course.
As a legally innocent individual.
But other areas in our culture and our government, we've destroyed the Fourth Amendment in so many ways with the Patriot Act, and I mean, Pastor Jeff's probably signed off a million vaccination letters to people trying to get exemptions.
Yeah.
And our culture doesn't care about that